Hi, good day, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the first TCS Bank Showcase. My name is Vivek. I head TCS Financial Solutions. Welcome to all of our customers, stakeholders, all of you friends, colleagues who are here with us today. Whoever thought we would be talking to all of you like this, right? In the first ever TCS Bank Showcase, where we would be virtual with you. Now it's normal for us to connect with you during SIBOS, to meet face to face with a lot of you. But then this is what we thought is the best way to do that this year, instead of what we usually have as our customer forum. So welcome again. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. I have the pleasure of introducing Jeremy White, who will be our speaker for the day. Um, Jeremy is um, editor at the Wired magazine. He was earlier with Financial Times, and he is a technology futurist, if I may put it that way, right? And he is with us here today to talk about a number of topics. Our subject for the day is the future of finance, but Jeremy will talk about all kinds of things: AI, blockchain, how technology is having an influence on what's going on in the world. He talks about it's like supercars. Maybe he'll talk about that. He's an expert at design, which is close to us and working with us. So I'm sure you're. Before I pass on to him, I also have, I also want to introduce and have with us Venkat, head of TCS Financial. Have the great pleasure as financial with we are using it in the best way possible, and that's our intent today. So after Jeremy speaks, there's an opportunity for a lot of you to put questions, on your screen. You will have a Q&A tab at the bottom which you can use, and you can type in your questions, and we'll take a look at that. We have our moderators also working with me and Venkat to pick out what you want to talk to us about. And then, after Jeremy is finished, Jeremy, myself, and Venkat will join you all in a brief conversation. So that's what we are going to have today. So Jeremy, over to you, and then I think I've had my say, and over to you, right, and to talk to all our customers and colleagues.
Hello there, and welcome everybody. I've got a very quick presentation for you today. So I'm the executive editor of Wired, and I'm here by machine learning and what's going on. So we're going to rattle through some slides very quickly. What we're going to do is, if we can go to the first slide, that'd be great. We're going to do quite quickly. Right. So this is the start of the internet. This is where how old it is, 1969, the ARPA network, the E-network, as it were. This is the first sort of packet node switching network. It operates the same way the internet works today. And most people don't realize how old the internet is and how far we've come in a short period of time. If we go to the next slide, though, look at how we're spending our time on the internet. Okay. This basically is a spread of computing power. This is from Andreessen Horowitz's report, and you can see how the computing capacity has massively shifted from 1993 towards China, Europe, and United States in 2018. Now, this is just the spread of computing power, the global installed base, and you can see that China actually takes up the same amount of space as Europe and the USA. You can see this trend actually continuing in the next slide as well. So the same picture, if we look at internet traffic, this is APAC is much bigger than the United States and Europe combined, for example. And again, the next slide, this is reflected in spending as well. Is a lot bigger than it used to be. The this flows through to e-commerce, everything place. But you can see now that China has as much e-commerce as the US and Western Europe. So you can see this global shift taking place. And this is, how the economic landscape is actually changing. If we go through to AI development, there's an interesting path to be taken, and I'll show you through visual AI. Next slide, please. This is ImageNet, and ImageNet took 15 million images in 22,000 categories in order to teach one of the first neural networks to actually learn how to process and understand images. And here you see the latter stages of that development there, where it's beyond categorizing what is actually taking place or what it's seeing, like a lamppost or a dog. Now the AI is applying context, and this was like 7 or 8 years ago. See here a man standing next to an elephant or a large airplane sitting on top of a runway. Whereas if we go to the next slide, if we jump forward from 2017, this is Nvidia's research here, and this was them being able to take that sort of visual AI and allow them to change imagery. So here you've got them making a winter image into a summer image, or a sunny image into a rainy image. And the interesting thing here, and I can't show you on this because I didn't want to risk the bandwidth, but this can be done, this was being able to be done by Nvidia live in video, and that was back in 2017, which brings us forward to 2018. The next slide, please. This is Google DeepMind's research. Again, so moving forward from AI classifying images to then manipulating images, these images from Google DeepMind's research, and if we look at the next slide as well, are all entirely fake. They're completely generated by Google DeepMind's AI. So the result here is the fact that none of these images ever existed. But if we look at the next slide, you can see it had with different classes. Easy classes on the left, hard classes on the right, and you can see the difficulty it had. And again, that's only in September 2018. Come to now, and you can see how quickly this is accelerating. Next slide, please. This is Facebook's own research just in September last year into the existence and the proliferation of deepfake technology using this AI and visual recognition and visual manipulation of imagery. And this is just one strand of AI, of course, and how fast it's developed. But the thing is to show you how quickly it's developed in just almost a decade, from trying to classify what a cat looked like to being able to manipulate live video. How is this actually being used in business, though, and in finance? If we look at the next slide, here we've got KFC using this very imagery in China right now to recognize its customers as they come into their stores, and being able to actually sell them the goods that they've had before, the food and drink they've had before, but also upsell them on what they might come in. The next slide, you see McDonald's coming in as well, doing a very similar sort of thing. They've made a number of purchases in the last couple of years. If we go back to McDonald's, please. If they've number of purchases in the last couple of years where they have bought a dynamic yield, an Israeli startup, which allowed them to use AI to automatically change the menus depending on the time of day, the weather, and the traffic. And it also allowed them to have number plate recognition as well. So they could change the menu depending on what type of day it was and whether it was hot or cold, and also recognize the people coming back to the restaurants, their drive-throughs. They also then bought another company recently that allowed them to have their own voice UI. So you can see them setting themselves up for a position where they will be able to almost automate their entire global drive-through experience at McDonald's by taking your order through voice UI, through a digital assistant, recognizing your car and dynamically changing its offering depending on the time of day and weather and so on. At the next slide, you see Wechat in China unveiling for the first time its new device that allows customers to pay for goods using just their face. So unlike tapping a card or even biometric by fingerprint analysis, just a point of sale device now just for your face. how is this actually, this technology, this image recognition technology being used in the financial industries, though? If you look at the next slide, you've got a company called Orbital Insight. Orbital Insight is really clever because they use this imagery, this visual AI, and they use that AI to wash through satellite imagery from above, looking at crop reports, looking at like agricultural reserves, water reserves, oil reserves. And they also have, looking here, they look at the number of cars in US shopping malls. And one of the interesting examples here is that they were able to determine a drop in number of cars coming to Penney shopping malls at the end of 2016, start of 2017, and therefore warn their customers about a future drop in price. If the next slide shows you how accurate they were, actually. The green line is the stock price and the black line is the car count versus the stock price. So you can see that the model is incredibly close. And indeed, in the start of 2017, JCPenney's closed 150 or so stores in the United States. So a very interesting model. The next slide as well shows you how sophisticated AI is being used in the financial industry already. This is Antia, a Hong Kong-based hedge fund. So this isn't just companies operating by bot trading and using AI, using the computers for speed. This is them training their own AI to on 20 years or 12 years of back data on the US stock market to spot connections and patterns that no human would ever spot. As I said, they gave it 12 years back data, set the model running, and it made a 12%, it made a 25% return annually, 25%. And so they turned it on for real, and it made money its very first day. We have no idea how much money it's making now because it's proprietary. It's made entirely in-house. This is not an off-the-shelf AI like a Google DeepMind or an IBM Watson. It was developed completely in-house. But the point was that it outperformed the humans in terms of hedge fund performance. Next slide, you'll see that this is even being implemented into the legal world. This is Luminance. Luminance is a company that uses AI to read legal documents so your lawyer doesn't have to. You pay your lawyer by the hour and you want them to be creative with their thinking. This isn't about replacing the lawyer. This is about giving them space and energy to actually go and do the best creative law they can for you. The Luminance can reduce a long legal document, 200-page legal document, to just a 4-page report, telling the lawyer, saying, you need to look at this, 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 and this. These are the bits you need to be concerned about. Don't worry about the rest of it. If we move on to how blockchain is being used in business, it goes way beyond just international money transfers, as banks are already using this sort of blockchain for. Japanese banks are now offering instant money transfers using blockchain. The money tap system here have reduced customers' reliance on bank on cash transactions. Japan is a very cash-heavy society still, and a number of banks are joining together to do this. The SBI Net Sumishin Bank and Surigura Bank and the Resona Bank. But what's interesting here is that TUI, one of the world's largest travel operators, has completely revolutionized its business by using the blockchain. What they've done is they've put their entire global hotel room inventory on the blockchain. So what they were doing is they were selling their different hotel rooms from different jurisdictions at different prices because they had an imperfect pricing model and didn't actually know what the live pricing was for the different jurisdictions. Well, they ended that by putting everything on the blockchain. That means they could also get rid of their physical servers. They allowed them also to take money directly from their customers, circumventing the banks and also circumventing the third-party applications like Trivago and Hotel.com that were taking a cut. And also it allowed them to have a much more detailed inventory that they were ever able to have before, gaining for the customers as well. And it saved them an enormous amount of money, allowed them to interact with their customers in a new way that they'd never done before. And also Microsoft was so impressed with this usage that they asked if they would like to they would like to open up this model to other businesses, and so far 2E hasn't done so. Then if we go to voice recognition and see how quickly that's come on. In 1995, it completely didn't work at all. It was 100% failure. And then in 2017, IBM announced that we'd reached human parity. And then that's just a 5% error rate, the same error rate you and I have when we misunderstand each other. Now, what's interesting about this is that next slide, you'll see that how ridiculously small the technology has become. This here is the chipset now, and all that you need to apply Amazon Alexa to a third-party device. It's about the size of a grain of rice or half a grain of rice. And it's gone down to that tiny size in just a short period of time. The next slide, though, shows you that there is actually a problem with quickly rushing into voice UI and interacting with customers using voice, because just very recently, the manager at an energy firm in the UK was duped into paying almost £200,000 by cyber criminals who used artificial intelligence in order to fake the executive's voice. And it was one of the first known scams of its kind. So, as always with these new levels of technology, interestingly, cyber criminals are very quickly able to find out a way of making advantage of this new. So cybersecurity is an ever increasing battle. If we go on to the next slide, you'll see how business is moving, even financial business is moving to the phone and moving to using voice, to using chatbot technology. These here are Wechat and Line, which are the biggest social media, social messaging apps in Asia. Wechat for China, Line for Japan, Thailand, Taiwan, and so on. It's a tremendously sophisticated system compared to what we have in Europe or in the United States, where we have WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. For example, on Wechat, you can manage your entire finances, or businesses can manage their entire finances just within Wechat. You can even apply for and get a mortgage within Wechat. You try doing that with WhatsApp here in Europe, and it would not work at all. They're not as sophisticated. And so they have a messenger bot as well, handling customer. China Merchant Bank has a messenger bot on Wechat, handling 1.5 to 2 million customer conversations each day. If we go to the next slide, these messenger bots are quite unsophisticated in many ways. This is money transfer here, where you answer 4 questions and you can send money anywhere in the world. But if you ask a funny question like who won the Euro 96 championship, the system has no idea what you're talking about. The bot has no intelligence. And Microsoft tried to give intelligence to its bots with this Tay experiment there on the right. And they had to shut it down after about 3 months or 3 weeks, I think, where the bot started to randomly insult its users and even be offensive. And they had no idea why, so they had to shut it down. But the next slide, please, and you'll see that Facebook has actually gone to try and bring this further, because wouldn't it be amazing if we did actually have an element of AI with chatbots in order to deal with clients and even possibly negotiate with them? And this is exactly what Facebook have done. They are working with the Georgia Institute of Technology to give AI to chatbots. And what they did was they gave the data from 6,000 human conversations to their bots, and they set an experiment running where they gave their bots 2 parameters, really. They had to divvy up a set of virtual resources with different monetary value. And the idea was to negotiate with each other. These bots had to negotiate with each other. And what they did was they had one parameter was that they wanted to have a long human-like conversation. And so they did that, and they found that the model was overly willing to compromise. And it was a very human-like conversation. It went on a long time, but it didn't get anywhere. What happened was when they turned on the second parameter, which was to maximize reward, to win the game, to win the negotiation for these resources, something very interesting happened. This is what happened. The team found incidences of the model feigning interest in a valueless issue so it could later compromise by conceding it. Deceit is a complex skill that requires hypothesizing the other agent's beliefs and is learned relatively late in childhood. Our agents, bots, have learned to lie without any explicit human desire to achieve their goal. Now, there's no, evil here or bad. The bots were never told that they couldn't lie. But what was interesting is that as a part of just negotiating these resources, these bots learned to pretend that they were interested in something so they could later give it away and actually get what they wanted. This is the next level of bot technology, negotiating on behalf of companies, and it's already in development. The next slide shows you how, from PwC, shows you how technology and innovation in global capital markets is interested in certain areas here. You can see that it's, distributed ledger technology like blockchain we're talking about here is actually not so much of interest at the moment, but is going to be in 3 to 4 years' time, and much more interesting. Cloud technology may be coming down a little, and then AI technology obviously going up initially for the first few years and then coming back down again. So you can see that these areas are the areas that capital markets and banks are actually interested in. And what's interested in is that distributed ledger technology not being interesting now, but very much so in the near future. And that's that blockchain model of what people are actually doing, going ahead, which areas of AI, blockchain, cloud technology, and data management are actually going to be so useful in the next few years. I've never seen a period where there's been so much change going on and so radically different. I haven't even got time really to talk about the next slide, which is quantum computing. And that's the next level of computing. If you think the computers are sophisticated now, we're already at the stage where IBM has made its first standalone quantum computer. And these computers are so fantastically sophisticated and more powerful that they're able to solve problems in super quick time that even our best supercomputers would take lifetimes to solve. So the Financial Times reported that the quantum computers processor from Google allowed a calculation to be performed in just over 3 minutes, and that calculation would have taken 10,000 years on IBM Summit, the world's most powerful commercial computer. So 3 minutes, from 10,000 years to 3 minutes, and this is already happening and already in development, and these computers already exist. So if I go to my last slide, the idea of ignoring this sort of pace of development is somewhat ridiculous, because what we have here on the next slide is what happens if you actually ignore it. This is the first mobile phone from 1983, and AT&T went to McKinsey's at the time and asked if this development of this technology would be a threat to their business, and McKinsey's turned around and said, no, we don't think this is going to be a threat to your business, or it might be, I think, it will be a threat, sorry, but there will be 1 million mobile phones in operation in the next few years, by the end of the decade. They got it completely wrong. They massively underestimated how many mobile phones would come into operation, and it radically changed their business model. And at least McKinsey's got it right on which way direction it had to go. Likewise, in 2004, when AT&T were asked whether Skype was going to be an issue for them, the CEO at the time dismissed it as a toy. And interestingly, in 2010, when the New York Times interviewed the CEO of Time Warner, asking if Netflix was going to be a problem for his company, he famously said, is the Albanian army going to come and take over the world? I don't think so. And now look at the relative fortunes of Netflix and Time Warner. These things are happening so quickly, but the most important thing is to be aware they're taking place, and to ignore them is really the main problem. Do so at your peril. That is thank you very much for your time. That is such a whistle-stop tour of what's happening here, but you can see how much is happening in the financial space using these developments in AI, in distributed ledger technology, in blockchain, and also in data. Thank you very much.
So Jeremy, I think, we are, yeah. Hi, Venkat. Hi, Jeremy. So, I think, we probably have some quick questions that we can get into, right? So, we'll get to that straight away. So, Jeremy, you have spoken about all kinds of things, and today we can't really touch anything. So it was interesting to see that the Chinese are using face recognition, and it's kind of like topical for the time. So one is, do you really think that AI is going to be pervasive as we go forward? That's what I wanted to ask you. And then, Venkat, intelligent core, what it means to software and solutions. It's one of your favorite topics. So probably, you can weigh in on how you see, an intelligent core as the future, and how pervasive intelligence will be in, core software. Something that is key to our customers and to how we work with software. So I'll pass it on to both of you to have that conversation.
Well, it's interesting with AI, so whether it be pervasive. I mean, what's interesting, I think, for me is the fact that I think very soon we'll stop talking about AI, because we'll just start talking it, because it'll become a part of computing. This separation that we have from AI and computing technology is very much a state of our time at the moment. And very soon it will be so pervasive, all pervasive, that we will just simply refer to it as technology or as computing. And we will no longer make the distinction between AI and computing and technology, because they will just be one and the same thing. So I believe very soon you will actually, people talking about artificial intelligence might even show themselves out to be viewing at it in a slightly, behind the times sort of way, because in the next few years, I think it'll be just assumed that whatever you're doing has a level of artificial intelligence involved in it, and therefore, why would you single that out? It will just be called computing.
Incredible. Leads perfectly into what we have been discussing, right, Venkat? What do you think?
You're on mute, sir.
You have to unmute, Venkat.
Yeah, sorry about that. You can hear me now, I hope. Yeah. So first of all, great presentation, Jeremy. I think you took us on that was a whistle-stop tour, absolutely. In about 20 minutes, you took us through a whole generations of evolution and gave us a glimpse of what can come. And I think this is something that we've been talking about in our business also, Jeremy, and many of our customers may also be aware of what we have been calling the intelligent core, because we are obviously in the business of core package software for financial institutions. And fundamentally, we see it at two levels, if I may put it in very, very simple terms in less than a minute. First is what intelligence means to an end consumer who actually consumes services, like a retail bank consumer, for example, right? So what does it mean to him? And in that context, I think it will mean a lot about how we are able to give the power of data to a whole lot of front-end engagement platforms, including ours, including any of their partner ecosystems, all of that. So I think power of data, that how we are able to drive that power through to the consumer and get insights out of that and so on. So I think that is one layer to the consumer, and what it will mean to the consumer is very powerful. You have spoken about so many examples today, Jeremy, McDonald's, Wechat. So all of those are manifestations of how the consumer is really going to feel that. But I also think often the other dimension is not getting too much visibility maybe, but a lot of investments are happening and will happen, is what it will do to the enterprise. I think in the enterprise, there's a whole lot of possibility, the art of possible, because we have a whole lot of AI has been driven, the narrative has been driven by Amazon and Facebook and so on, right? So we just think of the end consumer on the road, but it's enterprises which stand to gain a lot by deploying AI at scale. I think the kind of deployments of, just imagine, you talked about lawyers scrutinizing documents. The whole world is full of enterprises just looking at documents, Jeremy. So, Vivek, I think something we spoke about often. There are hundreds of guys that people employ just to read documents, just to take that one document reading and converting that to structured information. There's a huge potential just in that one single, it's a very small sliver to look at it as enterprise, what they do. So I think the enterprise efficiency, enterprise transformation is something that is also, I think, another dimension of AI from business standpoint. These two are the two things which come to me as what an intelligent core will really deliver.
Great.
In fact,
Jeremy,
yeah, please.
Yeah, in fact, on those, the diagrams that you showed, we are thinking of putting contracts and all kinds of such documents on a blockchain, Jeremy, by the way, right? Because you can't really change anything once you put it there, right? If you change something, that you'll know. So it's pretty much, tamper proof. So we've also been talking about how the pandemic has accelerated the adoption and the comfort with cloud, right? In the sense that we are all on cloud of some form, every day now, and there is an understanding that we have to be comfortable with it. Do you pretty much see everything on cloud as we look into the future? Do you see it that way? That the
I
cloud
think
is the only
basically
thing
what we're
almost?
doing, yeah, what we're doing is we're moving towards some sort of mixture of the edge cloud, the edge versus the cloud, really, or some sort of combination of the two. What's interesting is we've moved from decentralized to centralized to decentralized again and centralized, or the other way around, actually, centralized to decentralized, then centralized again for the cloud, and now decentralized to the edge, where the computing power is moving towards the devices at the edge of the cloud. And what's interesting there is that will change fundamentally how the cloud actually operates, but we don't quite know how it will yet. And there's a lot of companies out there trying to work out how it will change things. And there are not even regulations in place in Europe, for example, about how this actually might work, and data sovereignty and things like that. So people actually are trying to work out what this new hybrid of edge computing and the cloud as we know it today will actually be. And when we go into this 5G era and Internet of Things, and you talk about not only having sort of 5 billion mobile phones or 6 billion mobile phones in the world as a major part of the cloud, but also then the trillions of connected IoT devices, all producing data, all producing information that needs to be stored or dealt with or processed, whether it be at the edge or whether it be at the central cloud. It's going to fundamentally shift how businesses actually operate, and this is something that's happening right now. A lot of people don't think it's a particularly sexy topic. It's not particularly lively, but it's incredibly interesting, and it's also fundamentally going to shift how things will change. So for me, it's like everything was moving that way. Obviously, everything's moving onto the cloud. The cloud is now platforms as a service, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. But then it's going to be even more than that. It's going to be this edge world that we're moving towards with 5G and IoT proliferation. Most people aren't even really sure what it will look like. So it's hard to prepare, and you need to think about it very carefully.
There's one question that's come up. We'll probably pick that up. There's a question on, will blockchain make capital market transactions, much more transparent and immutable? Immutable, definitely. Transparent, maybe for OTC. I have kind of like a view on it, because you spoke about DLT 3 years away. What it will do in capital markets? There's a question that's there. Maybe we can pick that up.
Well, this is where we see it. Whether it would be, transparent. I just don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. That's the thing. You have to be honest with these. Sometimes the answer is you just don't know, and it's going to be interesting to see a number of the people, whether it's how much is adopted, how is actually used to answer that question properly. You would hope so, though. You would hope it would be, but whether it will be, I'm not sure.
And Venkat, Jeremy, what do we think? So much of use of images, will manipulation of images be another way of fraud as we look into the future? Potentially, if we use facial recognition and images more and more, with or without a mask, facial recognition with a mask has become an all-new problem. Yeah.
Well, it will be that. It won't just be facial recognition. It won't be facial, image manipulation and voice manipulation. It will be video manipulation. Very, very, very soon. It's already difficult to tell. Very soon, it will be almost impossible to tell the difference of what is actually real and what is not, and that's where we get the problem with this sort of ability.
I think that has always been true of every technology, right? It's always been that the guys who are able to hack it will always be, I think, one step ahead of the curve, seemingly. But I think it's always been we've always figured out ways to, I think, creatively solve it, or at least mitigate the risk to a large degree. That I think will continue in any technology. I think any technology will finally, there will always be guys who will figure it out, and that's always going to be a bit of a catch up there.
No, absolutely. I think we have kind of like overshot the time that we took from everybody. Kind of. But I think for everyone who's dialed in, I think it's good that they stayed on a little bit longer as a SIBOS program, which probably a lot of the people are looking to get to. So any last thoughts, Venkat, Jeremy, Venkat, starting from you?
Yeah, I think what Jeremy's presentation also brought home to me is something that we always talk about. It's never going to be, I think, one technology that will take us to the next level. I think it's a combination. The power of the combination is what is becoming very evident. Be it cloud on its own will do some things, AI will do something, and blockchain will do something. But all this comes together. That's the power of that combination is probably what will drive this dramatic change. Not that I'm not saying will drive. In fact, it is already driving. It's the combination that's the job more than a single technology. And I think you're at a point of time where there is so much convergence of these things, and all of them reaching critical mass, all of them reaching scale. So I think the very exciting future, and especially for people like us, I think very good time to be in this kind of world right now.
Incredible that we are
Absolutely,
all talking that finally we're talking of technology, right? We will take it for granted. We will not talk about AI separately, blockchain separately. It will be different technologies that kind of drive a future way of doing finance, right? If I could, go back to it. I'm not trying to take the title for the sake of it, but yeah. Sorry, Jeremy, I interrupted you.
No, I agree with that entirely. It's basically, we're going into such a period of fundamental change that it's very difficult to see actually the way through. However, there are certain things that we can actually, bank on. There are certain, areas that we have to, cybersecurity, the ability to actually to manage data properly, where that data will be managed, and also, the idea of how to actually use, machine learning and artificial intelligence to further your business. And everybody is working on this for their different sectors right now. And the idea and the fact that the financial systems and financial industry is so far ahead than many other industries in this area bodes well, I think, for everybody that's looking into this. And anyone who's trying to avoid it, they do so at their peril.
Yeah, and great to have this conversation. I think it's fantastic, right? I think it is very unique to everyone out there. Thank you all for giving us this time. I think it's peculiar for all of us, for me, Venkat, and Jeremy, to not see you but talk to all of you. It's a unique feeling where we only see ourselves, but we are talking to each one of you out there. It's great that you could all give us your time during this busy period. I know that you are trying to get some time with SIBOS, catch a few thought-provoking events and webinars, and also get to regular work. Normally, when we are at SIBOS, we take 3-4 days away from regular work, but this time we're not doing that. We are doing our business as usual work and trying to catch a few hours of some interesting topics and trying to decide how we will shape the future. So in that, thanks to all of you for having given the time to TCS to share your day with us and to be part of this. And we, Venkat and myself, very much look forward to meeting all of you in person soon, maybe in 2021. That's how it looks like. But for now, I think it's great we could connect with you like this, right? And we will be in touch with all of you. Thanks a lot. Have a great SIBOS the rest of the way. Great to talk to all of you.
Thanks very much, guys.